Hello.
Hey there, Aisla. How are you today?
Doing really well. I'm very much enjoying the fall weather.
I have been enjoying it too. I do have to say, over the last, it was roughly about a month, I traveled from anywhere from about 34, excuse me, I'm now in Celsius, anywhere from around 90 some degrees down to, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 degrees.
Wow.
I've seen the expanse of, and I did get an opportunity to spend some time in the mountains in Colorado when the leaves were charming.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was quite lovely. Yeah, I miss that. Growing up in New York, I would go upstate just so I can spend time around the changing of the leaves, and I do miss that. There is nothing like New England fall, I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah. No, I grew up in New England, and every fall, my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt and I would take a little drive up through New Hampshire, and we'd buy fresh maple syrup, which people who don't live there don't know you can do that, and fresh cider.
Yes.
And look at
Yes.
the leaves. It was quite a lovely family tradition. So,
yeah. And did you go pumpkin picking too?
yeah, I don't recall the pumpkin picking. I would guess that we did, but really the maple syrup and the apple cider were the winners for me as a child.
I would have to take a photo, just a couple of minutes walk. For those of you who don't know, I'm in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And just a couple of minutes walk from here is this wonderful market, outdoor market. And the gentleman who is at one of the vendors, last year, I think he took the winning prize, the Guinness Book, for the size of the pumpkin. And I just passed by yesterday for this year. And I don't know, he might have surpassed what he did last year. I'll have to take
Wow.
photos and I'll have to show it at some point.
Yeah, that's a great. We'll put it up on Instagram. And you just were in Iceland for a conference that are you up for filling folks in a little bit about some of those highlights?
Yes. So we've been bouncing around with her. I've been bouncing around for Harmony Voices over the last few weeks. And the last week was spent in Reykjavik in Iceland for a hemp conference. Surprise, surprise. I'd usually do those, and it doesn't matter where in the world it is. We usually end up at one of the conferences. This one was Hemp for the Future. And what really struck me is the fact that here we are in Iceland, and the amount of people that came to this event from all over did my heart good, because I recognized just how important this particular plant is, how we need to bring it back into our biodiversity, the expanse of what we get to use this plant for. Everything from, we've got animal bedding to building homes to CBD, medicinals, that sort of thing. And now we have a company, as a matter of fact, we talked a little bit about it a couple of shows ago, that are doing plasma, hemp plasma. So it's amazing what this plant gets to do. And the fact that so many people across the planet are going to different places on the planet just to speak, come together, and really elevate this plant, it does my heart good.
Yeah.
And Tota is the woman who put it together. And I've known Tota over maybe about 4 or 5 years now. And she should be proud, because she did a very fine job. And as a matter of fact, Marin Krins was there as well.
Lovely. Well, and that's a great reminder to me to let folks know November 22nd, Gaia Gossip on the Move will be back with Marin and Tota. and they will be talking about this conference and bringing and sharing, as Marin has done, some videos about what they saw and learned, and then they will do a live chat. So mark your calendars or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified when we put the episode information up. But November 22nd, that Friday, we'll do.
I'll put that in my calendar because I didn't have it down.
Oh, well, it's good because I think you're supposed to be there too. So
I'm sure I'm supposed to be there. Yes, yes.
Good job. And so today we're very excited to be talking with Lacy
McDonald. Yes.
Lacy Levon McDonald III.
Oh, excuse me.
And I'm going to bring Lacy in and let you guys talk about the topics at hand.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction.
Lacy, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Aisla, for the full name. Yes, the full royal name. So, Lacy, I appreciate the fact that you're here and the patience that you have with us. And for those of you who are sitting there scratching your head going, where's Myrna? Myrna is stuck in the tech abyss right now. She has been trying for, I don't know, at least a half hour, if not an hour, to get on. And for whatever reasons, the tech gods have decided that she should not be on just yet. Hopefully she'll be able to join us. But I'm honored to be here with you tonight. I should say today, your time.
First off, I'm jealous of your location because you can see the auroras pretty well, right?
Oh, well, I haven't seen it here in Amsterdam, but being in Iceland this week, that was my 7th visit to Iceland, and it was the first time I got to see the aurora borealis.
That's literally on my bucket list. I can't die without seeing the auroras.
I have been on the search for the longest time between Iceland, and then I've gone to Finland a couple of times to see it. And I always get the same thing. The day that I've left, that evening, people are sending me photos and videos of what just showed up. So I've been envious all of these years, and finally got to experience it just a few nights ago.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's real cool.
Rumor has it they're happening in the States as well, though.
Yeah, I keep on hearing about it. I see folks taking pictures. I think on the spectrum, visible spectrum, like we can't see them with our eyes, but our phones can pick up a lot of that.
Yes. So, yeah, and we did end up using our phones a great deal. We could see, it was faint, but we could see that greenish glow moving around. But as soon as you put your phone up, it was spectacular.
That's cool. That's pretty awesome.
So, Lacy, let's get to it. I mean, you are a champion for youth, right? You're out there helping with their empowerment and getting community service moving.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about what you've been doing. I mean, you've got an interesting history, everything going from being in the military for so many years and getting to this place. You consider yourself a garden guru today? I'm really curious. I'm
always going to be a learner when it comes to gardening because I didn't get started until about, I want to say, 8 years ago. So as I was transitioning out of the military, there's a gentleman here, a journalist in Denver called Brother Jeff, and he put out a challenge for Black men in particular in different types of professions to come into a school called DCIS at Ford in Montbello. And the premise was a lot of students were being overly suspended, and this was Black students were being overly suspended, in particular Black boys. And I went to, obviously, I wanted to go see what was going on and how I can help. And there was a little guy there. His name was Anthony Abeda. And he set me on this path of growing food, of mentorship, because he had told me, he used my own words against me, right? Because we're talking to the youth. We're like, hey, if you stay the course, you go A to Z, you're going to make it, guys. And Anthony used my words against me. He said, and he was a 3rd grader, like no bigger than, maybe 3 foot something. His afro was bigger than he was. And he
kept it real for you. Okay.
He hit me with a 1-2. So he said, Staff Sergeant Mack, you can tell me I can make it from A to Z, but you're not going to be here to show me how to do it. And I was like, wow. I was like, what's going on with this little third grader guy, for him to
Mhm.
say that? And I mean, he was facing a lot of challenges. So I took him up on what he had said. I told him I'd be there next Friday, and then next Friday turned into every other day, and any opportunity that I could take in volunteering there at DCI Side Ford, I would, to spend time with these young guys who just needed, that reassurance and a compass to follow, and somebody that looked like them. So in the back of the school, there was a little neglected garden, overgrown with weeds and whatnot, and I had no clue what I was doing when it came to growing food, let alone, mentoring these young boys. I knew how to command soldiers out in the field and to train, young men and women, but to have young kids like this, to try to motivate them in this way was new territory for me. But I definitely knew it was important. I wanted them to actually see something with their hands a little bit more so than, because the work that we're going to be doing is going to take a long time.
Mhm.
And for us to compete with technology, it is really tough when you get instant gratification from phones and stuff, especially with a young impressionable minds. And I'm positive there are many a study out there right now that talks about the effects of technology in our youth and just their brain development. So the garden was like perfect for me to work with them because we're working on patience. We're working on grace. They got to pull all the weeds out. We, made these raised, fixed the raised flower beds. We put those seeds in the ground and then we started watering. And obviously, you're not going to get, plants popping out of the ground as soon as you throw some water on. It's going to take some time. Um, and in those moments of us working on the garden and watering and stuff, we got to really peel back those onion layers. Like, what's going on, with you, Anthony? What's happening? How can I help you? What you have any questions? I remember when I was your age, and it just presented so much opportunity to have that small talk, and especially for us, a lot of our history is handed down orally, like that. Those verbal conversations with youth, man. That is how we grow. Even for me to listen to my grandparents and them telling stories about, the collard greens that they would grow in the back, or like anything of that nature. Is lessons and wisdoms handed down from one generation to the next, and we seem to be kind of disconnected from that nowadays. And the garden offered that for me. So
There's nothing like the stories. There's
yeah.
nothing like the stories. And to planting those seeds, those are our relatives.
Mm.
And just like us, and just like when we are spending time with children, we have to have that patience. We've got to take the time to nurture. We've got to water. We've got to sing. We've got to cultivate a relationship to get the best out of whatever we have planted.
Exactly.
So, yeah, thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you to all of the children holding us accountable.
Mm.
And, more power to you for being that man who does keep your word, and you showed up. You came the next week and you continued.
Yeah, yeah. Continued, and then followed my wife over into the west side of Denver. We are at Lake Middle School right now. My nonprofit's out there. It's called Outer Haven, and continue to do the work with mentorship and the camping, outdoor education. But a cornerstone of what I do is growing food. I'm no expert at growing food, but I know I'm a student and I learn new things all the time. In fact, the kids have been really helping me out with the hydroponics that we've been doing inside of our seventh grade classrooms at Lake Middle School. But when my wife took over Lake Middle School was well, it was the worst performing school in Denver
Mm.
Public Schools. But not only Denver Public Schools, it was the worst performing school in the state of Colorado. Okay, that comes from like
Wow.
culturally, just as far as like yeah, whether it's be vandalism or parent satisfaction. Do students feel safe?
Mm.
Attendance. It was like gosh, all of the Hollywood movies that would come to mind, like Higher Learning, and you got Michelle Pfeiffer going up in there trying to do something, or you name it. And I remember looking at my wife as she went into the school and was like, this is she's gonna be the leader of this school. And I was like, oh my god, I'm looking at these kids, and I mean, it was like a rec center. I couldn't tell like what they were learning, and in a couple of the classes that we had walked into, the windows were barred up on the southern side of
Mm,
the building,
mhm,
and it was dark inside of the hallways. In fact, Denver Public Schools had to send their central staff in to man the hallways of Lake Middle School to ensure students got into those classrooms, which kind of like really blew my mind. Like, we're wasting all this money just to get the kids in the classroom that they're not really getting anything out of it. So, I asked my wife, how can I help? And she was like, hey, let's focus on the broken window theory, work on, doing the gardening stuff that you do, the
mhm,
mentorship, and we're going to go from there. And like my wife had a amazing talent for finding folks to come in and work with our students. A lot of the folks that came into Lake Middle School came from Lake Middle School. They were prior students, and now they're teachers, or they're cultural staff. Culture was like the main thing that we wanted to do, and she picked an amazing guy, Mr. Reyes. Uh, Came in with a great attitude, great focus on culture. Really wanted the kids to see themselves not only in the staff, but I mean on the walls, and how we conducted ourselves. What the focus was. Lake Middle School is Lake Middle School Knights, and Knights, being a warrior, that transcends cultures. So you can be the samurai is like a knight, right? Zulu warriors are like knights. So we took that concept, and we came up with the Knights of the Nine, where at 9 months out of the year, each month represents a virtue. So we would start with courage, because as Dr. Maya Angelou said, without courage, you cannot practice any of the other virtues consistently without courage. So we started there. We would have a person from the community that represented that virtue. And it was our first one was Sergeant Outlaw. She represented the virtue of courage for us. And when we had students vote on who's going to be awarded this prestigious award. Like, you can't get any higher than the Knight of the Nine at Lake Middle School. And each class would pick that particular student that would represent that virtue, staff and students. And it wasn't until they came onto the stage, and we have a real sword, it's called the Lightbringer, that we knight our students with on stage. And the first set of students that knelt on that stage, and I could see in their eyes, like, they believed in what we were doing. They
mhm.
believed that they represented the virtue of courage, and they had someone up there that represented that courage, Sergeant Outlaw, and her sharing her story, and the courage she had to do to move on to the next day. Like, that was like, I was like, yo, we got the algorithm. Like, this is it. Like, we got an answer. And for the past 7 years, we've been there doing that, whether it be growing food, cultivating a great environment there for our students to see themselves. We routinely have students come back to Lake Middle School to give back, to volunteer, or just to spend time there, because it was like family for them. You spend about 8 to 9 hours there a day over a 9 month period. And kid, I'm just saying, I've never wanted to go back to my middle school. But we definitely got something going on at Lake Middle School. We have, let's just, for instance, the Denver DJ School is in Lake Middle School, where our students learn how to podcast journalism, and they obviously learn the art of DJing with the controllers and everything, the
I
different
was
genres.
just going to ask you. You jumped on that one. Yes.
And I mean, that honestly, that is like a flagship, because no other school in district right now is really doing that. It started off as an after school program that DJ Jones started, and then he got into teaching, and then brought that program. There's a brick and mortar Denver DJ school here at in Denver, but he was bringing it specifically to help Lake Middle School out, get our kiddos interested in reading in. Like I said, everything leads off of leadership. And Amanda, my wife, Amanda McDonald, like the way that she came in with her leadership on incorporating like literacy as like our cornerstone of connecting everything together, making sure that teachers and staff and students all knew how to operate and utilize these particular literacy pathways and talking to each other that way has been extremely successful. In fact, so successful that Lake, in its first time ever becoming green, we have a school performance framework that different public schools has, and it's all set on these different colors, right? And
Right. Is that, and
red.
are you talking about Big Green or
No,
Becoming
no,
Green?
no.
Okay. Okay.
Not big green yet, but we're gonna get
Okay.
there. But green as in the color of the evaluation of where you're at. So with this school framework, school performance framework, it's you're judged on different colors. They have different colors that rank you. Red is the bottom, blue is the top. You got yellow, or you got orange, yellow, green, blue, right? And Lake Middle School, for the first time ever since this school framework has been instituted, has scored green. So, and that's not just a reflection on the culture; it's also the academic part of that we're excelling and meeting in, and in particular for our Black students, they outperformed every other group when it came to literacy at Lake Middle School. So, like
It's
it's
amazing
something
when we
ancient in that, I will say it.
when we feed our BIPOC community, when we have an opportunity for education, how we excel is impressive.
Mm.
And the fact that these students have you in that classroom, the fact that Amanda has pushed in ways to help these students, it makes all the difference. When you have power of examples and you get to identify, you can physically identify with that person as well. It
Mm.
makes a huge difference.
Yes, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And I
Uh,
know coming from, I grew up in New York City, and I ended up going to an agricultural high school. And going back many years later to visit, how heartbreaking it was to have to go through the security at the front door,
mm,
and having, over a period of time, it went from just the regular little security guards to, oh, now we have armed police at the door. And that disconnect for students, what happens when we have to experience that? Um, Being able, at least for myself and those who came after me, talking to the next generations of students,
mm,
to know that you could go through those gates and then have a teacher in the ag department, have a teacher who's going to help you out with gardening, have a teacher who's going to help you out with addressing small animal care,
mm,
getting your hands involved, and being able to listen to the stories
mm.
that for generations that have been passed down on being able to plant. And what does that really mean? And how do we plant those seeds within ourselves? For me, it was a gift. And I know that the students who've been able to attend the classrooms that you're talking about, to be able to go in there and really get their hands dirty in the soil, it can save lives. It
I,
truly can save
I
lives.
agree, and hopefully, if different public schools is out there watching this right now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that growing food is a critical part of. Well, growing food is nature. Period. You
Right.
growing food, that's nature. Plain and simple. And we have to be the stewards of this land. And I feel like we've been so distracted
Mm-hmm.
that now we're dealing with consequences now that have been in the making for hundreds of years, right? Since the industrial age started, and we started burning fossil fuels and then going haywire with it. We're getting ready to really deal with the consequences of that. A lot of the times that we're working with students and we're talking about the future, like what is it going to look like if we don't have any bees? Like simple stuff like just how interconnected we are to everything, because Takis don't grow on trees. Ooh, I hate Takis, by the way. It's in
Yes.
moderation, okay? In moderation.
Everything in moderation,
They
right?
are not
Yeah.
moderate. There ain't no moderation with Takis, okay? With
No, no,
kiddos.
and Takis are getting in for it's become its own food group, that's for sure.
Exactly. God.
Yeah.
Well, I
And you
guess
know,
I.
we've come to this place because we are nature.
Mm,
And yet we seem to have forgotten that. We've disconnected in all sorts of ways. And unless something comes prepackaged on a shelf that I can just go and pick up, you know,
yeah. Yeah. And I think,
what a
yeah.
difference.
Yeah, we have to take responsibility and get back into our food chain. We're only at the end of it. And generally speaking, we're always at the end of it. We don't go through the whole from beginning to end. And I think that would just add so much value to even the farmers and the folks in the agriculture right now. Like they don't get paid enough. That is for
Yeah.
sure, because they're literally feeding everybody, and that's extremely important. And then in the manner in which we grow food, because as of right now, as far as I can tell, we've got about, I believe, 50 or 49 more crop rotations before we start like killing off soil, just because we've been very reckless with how we put nutrients back into the soil. Right, the great buffalo of the Great Plains is almost all but extinct, and that really is was a critical part of making our land so fertile. Is
This is
that
true.
natural by you know uh, microbes and the goodies that come from inside of a buffalo's
Mhm.
gut?
Mhm.
We don't have that anymore. So I think we have to be extremely careful in how we move forward in educating our children in particular, because that's the future, and them really understanding the value of growing food. We have a saying in Big Green, and this is where Big Green comes in: growing food changes lives, and it does. And all of the other great educators that are out there that are part of that organization are phenomenal. Like we have uh, Mr. Watkins. I should say he's a young guy. He's only 16, but he's got his own little nonprofit out in Ohio called the Garden Club Project, and he started growing food when he was 6 years old. Senior Watkins, his dad, supported him through that effort at 6 years old. He had, I believe it's called Tiger Mushroom Farms, is where he started growing food with mushrooms. And someone saw that what he was doing, believed in what he was doing, he and his dad, and gifted him an acre of land to grow food on. So now he grows food on that acre. And I mean, I think just recently he was on some Shark Tank show recently, but he's one of our members of the Big Green Dow. Just an amazing human being, and it's folks like that are gonna save this world, man.
And it's folks like that who, if you invest in them, whether it's a financial investment or
Hmm.
giving back some land, you can take 1 acre and it's amazing how many mouths you get to feed with that.
Hmm.
It really is.
Exactly.
It's an investment that it goes beyond the monetary. Um, so speaking to investments and funding,
Mm.
how are you guys funding this? The Big Green DOA, is that
Yeah.
is that a
DAO, decentralized autonomous
DAO?
organization.
Okay, okay. Is that a crypto fund? Am I
Well, it
understanding it correctly?
started out in the crypto world, in the
Okay.
Web3 space. Yes. In fact, when COVID hit us, and COVID hit everybody, it was a
Yes, it did.
global pandemic that really had us reeling. But Big Green, the organization, was trying to put as many gardens in schools or across the country, right? In fact, that was we were awarded one at Lake Middle School, a learning garden outside. And while we started to work on it is when COVID hit.
Mm.
And a lot of our parents were essential workers. And a lot of those kiddos were children with autism. And gardening comes in quite handy on them building life skills and being consistent with it, right? Um, and just by chance, as Big Green was transforming in their operations, they wanted to go from doing the gardens across America in different schools, and the focus was more on like how can we empower folks that are actually doing the work and give them more of a voice and flip philanthropy on its head, and how they were planned on doing that. And this is the brainchild of Kimball Musk, was that he would put, he grabbed five organizations across the U.S. that do the work when it comes to food justice, food sovereignty. Like Wande from Hands, Heart, and Soul is down in Atlanta, Georgia, and Catherine, she's a part of Project Sweetie Pie. Vero was Brownsville Health and Wellness down in Brownsville, Texas, and a day who represented our First Nation folks. Uh, we were given the task of not only receiving a grant ourselves, but also being a part of awarding and evaluating other nonprofits across the country to empower them to be a part of this this organization. So when you get a grant, you have the power also to give that give a vote and a say so on who receives granting and funding as well. So like as far as flipping philanthropy on its head, I think Big Green has got a mission accomplished on that. We've given out about a little over, I said almost 3 million in grants dollars to nonprofits, grassroots nonprofits across the country. A lot of it was focused on BIPOC-led organizations that are doing the work, and it's unrestricted funds too. So it's not like there is a say so on like, yo, it needs to go exactly. It could go to health insurance for that organization. It could
You're
go to other operational needs that need to be done to make sure that nonprofit is successful and continues to do the work it's doing. And I mean, honestly, like the streets is going to tell us if you're doing the work or not, like your work is going to speak
absolutely.
for itself.
Yeah.
And all of the nonprofits that are a part of the DAO, like they're reputable organizations, and they're doing the work out there. We're just trying to amplify it and continue to power, what they're doing out there. In
And for
fact,
those who are philanthropic, listen to what Lacy just said. When you give, and you give without the stipulation of you have to do it this way, you have to quantify it, qualify it this way, it slows things down.
you know what? In the famous words of a day, she said, give us the funding and get the hell out of the way. And that's, because for a lot of folks out here doing the work, man, like, it's always a day late or a dollar short. And we're always out here grinding for different, grants and funds that are available out there. And this really does kind of put that on its head. And offer other funding opportunities for orgs out there, whether they be large or small. Because I had a very small organization, I still do. Honda Pilot, shovel, some seeds and a dream, and I mean honestly, that's all you need. Uh, and, and it's just been so amazing. We've got folks like Stephen Lucky, who's down in Texas. He has an organization down there called Gardopia, and he works in the educational field too, supporting BIPOC communities across Texas. And he's doing the work. He's a part of the steering committee, which I'm a part of now. We all rotate off of it, so it's not like a select few folks that are part of the organization that drives things. No, it's more of a steering committee. But the DAO together collectively come up with the issues that we want to tackle. um, if there's a direction that we want to go in as an organization, we're going to head in that direction collectively. It's weird. It's like this democrative focus moving on philanthropy. Not only are we grant making, but we're also trying to ensure that the nonprofits that are a part of our organization are still here, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years from now. We don't want this to just to be a one-off thing. So, folks get support with developing their website. For example, my website, I got help with that thing. So, which I never really had. Financial advice and stuff. We bring in contractors to help, our orgs out tackle some of the financial stuff, whether it be, balancing the book, getting, different programs to help, organize your finances. Also budgeting, throwing together that budget, like how are you going to get those dollars. We get coaches on how to support us on, how do you get that message out? Like, how are you delivering that message to the world? How can you get more funders to believe in what you're doing? How do you develop them? And then Big Green itself helps us get in front of funders that, we wouldn't really be exposed to. And having that opportunity is extremely important, because the majority of the time, that foundation or that local government grant, goes to a chosen few people who are going to say yay or nay on it, and don't really have any of the, background knowledge or any type of real relationship with the folks that are out here doing the work.
Exactly.
And I think that's super important.
Yeah, and the fact that you do a lot of collaborative work makes
Mm.
a big difference when it comes to funding as well.
Yes, it does.
Grantors, they love to support that. We're always talking about when you work together, you rise together.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, if you're not familiar, we have an indigenous permaculture program that we do. Shannon Francis is in charge of that. If you're not familiar with Shannon, I need to introduce you to. She is the lead for Spirit of the Sun.
Yes,
And
yes.
she's been doing indigenous permaculture for a lifetime.
In fact, Spirits of the Sun, she was at our annual, which we just had earlier this October. She came and she spoke. She did her land acknowledgement piece,
Wonderful.
and spoke about how important it was for us to really focus on our indigenous roots. So, yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, because she is a wealth of knowledge. And also, when you talk about education, on financial education too, and creating the budget and that sort of thing, we also have an Indigenomics program, series, I should say, and that's hosted by our board chair, Tamar Kantav, who's a Haitian Taino woman. And these are the kind of things we need to go into our communities. We need to be in the BIPOC communities, educating our people to give ourselves an opportunity to reignite, to remember who we are, and teach our future ancestors, which actually we are a part of those future ancestors. Now, I know you have had this long career, and starting way back, I don't know, you spent how many years in the military as well?
About 15 years in the Army.
Okay. Right. And so did you go into the military with an idea of, I want to go into the tech world to begin with? Were you in the tech world? Then you decided, oh, this is a nice transition. And then how do you use that today?
Well, that's quite interesting. How I got into the military was 9/11. 9/11 convinced me to join the Army. I was at Washington State University when 9/11 happened. I was going there to become a chemical engineer, of all things, thinking I'd save the world with coming up with some new, innovative, source of fuel that with no bad byproduct in my teenage years. But 9/11 happened, and I thought that it wasn't right that other young men and women out there would go and fight on my behalf, and I thought that it was just right for me to do it too. So I got out of Wazoo, and I went to go serve as a technical engineering supervisor for the Army, and went on a couple of tours to Afghanistan, where I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about life. Um, and more so that, I was always looking for a rite of passage into manhood, right? I wasn't raised by my dad. My mom's raised me. Shout out, mama, love you.
Well
But
done, Mama. Well done.
I was looking for a rite of passage into manhood, and I thought that I would get that through the baptism of battle. And honestly, I found out that that is not a rite of passage into manhood. In fact, it's learning how to care for your community, how to take care of others, uh, being emotionally controlled in certain situations like that. That was the type of manhood that I now understand. Back then, being I was an 80s baby. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Rambo, Braveheart. I thought that, by being in combat, that would give me the kudos that, hey, I made it into manhood. But it's a little bit more than that, than just that. And I learned that through my time fighting. I learned to value life more than I would have if I didn't have that experience. But it was one of the some of the toughest times in my life, obviously, but I learned quite a lot about myself, about human nature. I learned how ugly we can be, but I also learned how beautiful we can be too, when it comes to this life and death struggle, and learning to live with others that, we may not worship the same God, we may not speak the same language, but love is love, man, and that transcends those particular barriers.
And it's sometimes we have to remind ourselves, we have to live a life, experience a life that is not who we are, in order to remind ourselves of truly who we are, why we are here. And sometimes it is, for some people, it is going to war, whether you are physically on the battlefield or you're going through the emotional, mental wars of the everyday. But it creates every bit of who we are. And if we step into that understanding of who we are and why we are, we get to be in those leadership roles like you have shown yourself a power to be. You are certainly a power of example for young people, whether it's the garden guru that you have become, training. I understand you also help in training fitness, youth for fitness.
Oh yeah, we got to stay in shape now.
We have to. We have to. We've got to
uh,
take care. It is
yeah,
full body, mind, spirit, soul. It is all. We don't
yes.
just separate. It is a
Health is
complete
wealth.
package.
Health is wealth.
Exactly.
Like, my
Exactly.
my dream is that at 100 years, I want to still be in such a great shape I can jump out of an airplane, skydive out of that bad boy, or swim across the English Channel or something crazy like that. Like that's what I want to make sure that my mind, body, and soul is still relevant enough to do stuff like that.
After we're done, I'm going to show you a photo of my 98-year-old mother. And she is the baby because her big brother's 102. They still keep going.
Still
They still
doing it.
keep, they're still
Love
doing
it.
it. Mom could dance you under the table. They're
Okay.
still
All
doing it.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't you
But you know
don't
what? They
threaten me with a
also
good time, okay?
but they also grew up in a time where they were out there planting their food.
Mm,
They ate healthy foods. It wasn't sprayed down with a bunch of chemicals.
yeah. Wasn't nutritionally deficient.
No, no. And I know grandma used to go and she'd go, okay, that's the chicken, you know, and they would take the chicken in the back, right? It was a different time. And in a lot of ways, it's a way that we need to go back to in order to really truly heal this planet and re-engage, recognize how interactive we are with each other.
Mm,
We are nature, and we
we
have
are.
to remind ourselves of that. And I'm grateful that mom and grandma, they reminded me of those things growing up. We need that kind of mentorship.
Definitely. Yo, you know what? Yo, I gotta know. We have our little podcasting things that we do over at Lake Middle School and over at Big Green, but we always have these particular questions. I gotta ask you, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite thing to grow?
Oh, my favorite thing to grow. Ooh, I got a ton of peppers that I grow, and I really, oh man, basil and peppers, they're probably my favorites. Yeah. Although when I have my stuff going, I've got my corn, I got my three sisters, right? I got my
Yeah,
corn, I got my beans, and I got my squash
squash.
growing.
Yeah.
Yes. But my favorites, I am a big fan of all of the peppers that we've got out, and the hotter the better.
Okay.
Do we have some of the? I think we might have some photos of you in the garden.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
talk
I
about
believe, yeah.
what are some of your
Well,
favorite.
that's the
Oh,
green
well,
room.
we're in
There's
the
that's
okay,
the
the
Denver
green
DJ
room.
school right there. Speaking of green,
That's right.
but
All right. So
our students get a lot of really cool exposure to different career fields. So I mean, what better way to try to bring that into the classroom? We're trying to get past and beyond those four brick walls. I don't think naturally we ain't supposed to be learning in no box.
no,
So anytime that we can get our students into different things or out of certain areas to learn new things, man, we're gonna totally take advantage of that.
absolutely. Yeah, we need to. Um, and do we have any more photos? There we go. What do we
Yeah.
got?
Oh, so that's inside of our seventh grade classroom, our science classroom. At the beginning of the year, our main topic is Mars, and what this did was introduce our students to like, well, if we have soil and we're taking that with us, how are we going to support ourselves? As we travel to Mars, when we get there, depending on like how fertile that ground is, like, are we going to be able to grow food there anyways? How are we going to do that? So students built these raised beds inside of the classroom. They brought in dirt from outside. We have night crawlers in there now, so they went worm hunting at the beginning of the school year. Planted tomatoes and peppers. Your peppers are in there, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. You got some spicy ones. Save
And
something for me.
lettuce,
All right?
and then compared it between the hydroponics that we have in there. So we have a hydroponic tower and a couple of smaller little hydroponic systems that our students are growing food out of as well. But hopefully by the end of this year, we're going to have an aquaponics. That's what that big tub in there is for. So
Mhm.
we'll have fish in there with us just to see like how symbiotically that we live together. So like they get a little bit of that when putting the worms in, and we talk about worm casting and
Mhm.
talk about like how do we rejuvenate the soil, and like if we're putting worms in there, like are they gonna outgrow the box, or does nature regulate itself in some form or fashion? So our students, get real hands on with that. This shot right here is in the back of or on the southeast side of the school, and it's a project that we're doing with Denver Urban Gardens at Lake, and it's a food forest that we're going to be putting out there on the campus, like sporadically throughout the campus. First off, the campus is gorgeous. If you ever come to Denver again, come stop by Lake because it's the architect built it. It looks like an English castle,
Hmm.
hence lake nights.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it sits on about an acre and a half. So throughout the school campus, students have been building raised flower beds and stuff because I talk to our students about legacy building, and a lot of them don't understand it right now, obviously because they're too young. But 3 years from now, 2 years from now, they'll be driving by Lake Middle School as a high schooler or going to
Mhm.
college, and they'll look at some of the structures that are still there that they took part in creating, which I think is extremely important. And knowing that the food that we grow out of there goes to folks from around the community. We've donated. I want to say we've grown from Lake itself. I want to say about 600 pounds of food
Wow.
that we've donated to a local food pantry at West Colfax Lampstand. And then, of course, the kiddos take it as well.
Mhm.
But we were growing squash and melons and watermelons and tomatoes uh, uh, and other little herbs and stuff that we have there. But we're really excited about getting that food forest going because again, what we put in there is going to be stuff that's local to Colorado that they can use for medicinal purposes, and also understanding just the nutritional value of what they're getting, and just present us an opportunity to build with the community around us. Yeah.
Now, do you do the comparisons with the students of, okay, this is store bought versus this
Oh
is
yeah.
what you grew?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think they understand that the first time they bite one of the little tomatoes
Right.
off the vine.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
I won't have the
instantaneous.
tomatoes out there. Yeah, unless it's somebody I know who's grown it, I'm not taking that tomato.
Yeah, it is like instantaneous taste test on that. They understand that growing it straight out of the ground themselves is a much tastier. It ain't sitting somewhere for months on end, getting transported across the country to get to them. And they understand really like just how important it is to be a part of your food chain and not being at the end of it, but being for the whole ride. You get a different perspective, you get more value out of it. In fact, one of my students, her name is Christina. She's getting ready to be a college student here shortly. But she, in the beginning, she had a rough time. There, kind of doubted herself a lot. And we would have discussions within our garden about, sometimes there'll be a plant that looks like it's dying or something. And all it needed was a little bit more nutrients, or like we needed to crumple up some eggshells and sprinkle it around
Mhm.
it, and we'll wait a little bit and see what happens. And, then she started to notice like, whoa, the plant's getting better. And then she
Mhm.
made this comparison between herself and the garden, about how like her taking care of the garden was kind of like taking care of herself. And sometimes things might not go right, but if you put a little care into it, wait a little bit, it generally works itself out. So like, and that was all her, man. And just that alone lets me know that I'm on the right path. We're doing great work out here, and I continue to
Absolutely.
do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes all the difference. And left to their own devices, when you educate, when you bring young people to the environment, when you bring them to nature, they recognize, they recognize easily, oh, this is me.
Oh yeah.
And as I tend to this flower, this plant, this whatever, I'm tending to myself. I need to remind myself of that on a regular basis, because sometimes, it is also within our nature to maybe not treat ourselves well.
Mm,
So if we can sit there and identify with that plant and go, I'm going to treat myself as well. I'm going to nurture me as well
mm,
today as I did this, that is giving me life and sustenance.
mm.
It can make all the difference.
Yeah, that reminds me of Jamala. He's one of our committee members for the Big Green Dow.
Mm,
He was serving a life sentence in prison, and he just recently was awarded his freedom at a parole hearing. I want to say at least maybe 2 years ago, I believe 2 or 3 years ago. And he's a part of a gardening program called Insight Garden Program, and it's focused for folks who are incarcerated
mhm,
to get their hands into the soil.
mm,
So he would tell us this story recently about how he was in solitary confinement for years. For years, he was in solitary confinement, and he had said that he looked up at the ceiling and he was like, I'm gonna look up at the ceiling when I die. Like I'll be looking at these walls and being in this cold concrete place, until my last days. So when he was reincorporated back into the general population, he ran across the Insight gardening program, and he was like, I'll take it. I'm gonna take it. And as soon as he put his hands in the soil,
mm.
he said it totally transformed him. Totally transformed.
I believe
Gave
it.
that man hope.
Yeah.
And then now he's free now,
Mhm,
and works with the Big Green Dow on our committee. But he helps other folks in the same situation that he was in, serving them in the capacity of teaching them how to grow food while
mhm,
they are in prison, and just recidivizing them when they
mhm.
get out. Jamal is like he's a daggone superhero to me, and just another example of how dope the Big Green Dow organization is, with all the great folks and programs within it.
And the power of soil.
Ooh,
Boy,
yeah.
I tell you, there's nothing, you put your hands, studies have shown there is a brain chemical reaction to us putting our hands in soil.
Mm.
It has shown that. So I believe Jamal's transformation, I'm sure he's not the only one, but we need to hear more stories like this.
Definitely. Definitely. Like it should be literally mainstream.
It should be. It should be.
All the
Absolutely.
heroes and sheroes out there that put their hands in the soil.
Yep.
Like we should be hearing all those stories, all those tales.
Yeah. I had an opportunity just about 2 weeks ago. I was back in New York, and I met with a gentleman who's got it's set up a little bit like a Costco. It's the big warehouse, but it's for predominantly Black and brown restaurateurs and farmers. And the difference of the impact in community because of the availability of that one store, and they're getting ready to expand, has had a tremendous impact within community there. Tremendous impact. And we've got people who have spent time on the other side of those bars who are now shopping there and bringing their foods that they've planted to this location. They are farmers who have gone into community, right? Because the soil and these plants spoke to them. So the impact can be amazing. If you ever need anybody to speak on the benefits of hemp in the soils, let me know. We certainly have a whole host of people that can do that, because that's another plant that people have a tendency of staying away from, and the benefit
it was
of it.
demonized.
It was demonized, and it was demonized for racially motivated and political control reasons. Lots of lies, and a lot of people drank the Kool-Aid. But I often say, anytime we remove one thing out of our biodiversity, we we throw everything out of balance. And so it's another one of those things that works well for the soil. It helps to remediate and does amazing things for the crops. And knowing that when we are sometimes given that little piece of land to do the projects that you're talking about, sometimes they are in areas that are not the healthiest of areas. So we have to really truly tend to the soil. We are almost out of time, but I understand.
I can talk all day.
You and me both. Hey, you and me both. We're talking. I used to be an FFA, or Future Farmer of America. So I will sit here and talk to you all night long. I understand we do have one pick left. It's a pick of Hall of Fame.
Oh, the Hall of Heroes.
Oh, the Hall of Heroes. Okay.
Yeah, so that's like a compilation of 5 years of working with students at Lake, coming in, and we'll stencil some stuff out. It's pretty cool. Oh, I don't know if you guys have that one or not.
I don't know if we have that one or not.
Well, if you don't have it, I think that you should come by Lake and take a tour.
Absolutely.
Taste our tomatoes as you check out the Hall of Heroes.
Okay.
Hang out with our youth, those future leaders, So
those who do want to come check it out, and those who are sitting back and going, you know what, I want to support this in some way, shape, or form. How do they contact you? What is the best way to reach you?
Well, visit my website. It's theouterhaven2019.org, or you can contact me also at Lake or DPS K-12. Oh, God, am I messing that up? I am totally messing that up. Google Lake Middle School, Denver, Colorado, and they have their link up there as well. It would be a tremendous support for, you listening to our little late night radio that we do with our students at Lake. You can hear Esme and Aiden and all of the great, we have really awesome future leaders there at Lake Middle School, and support us. So visit our sites, our websites, Google us up, and drop on by for a tour.
Lacy McDonald, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Myrna, thank you for sending little notes through WhatsApp. I'm sorry you couldn't be here this evening. But on a selfish note, I'm glad I was. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, evening. Just feel blessed. Thank you, Lacy.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you.